After meeting at Springfield Technical Community College, Vilenti and Yeselie Tulloch went on to not only build a life and family together, but also a business called the Academic Leadership Association. This program empowers young people and serves schools in Springfield and Holyoke by addressing their social, emotional needs through mentorship, literacy, and self-advocacy. I spoke with Vilenti and Yeselie to learn more about the program.
So we're a school-based organization. So we partner with schools in the district. Once you develop a contract with that particular school, we work with their leadership team to identify the students considered most at risk, right? So we look at whether it's grades, behaviors, attendance, and try to figure out what the needs of that student are. And then, we assign our mentors.
And I know that the program started around the beginning of the pandemic, and you were only in one school, but right now you've grown to about 14 schools in Holyoke and Springfield. Tell me about what you do in the schools and how it feels to have this program grow.
It feels amazing. God is good. You're right. We did start with one school. Principal Michael Calvin, he's really took a risk on us and, allowed us to not only begin working with his school, but develop our own systems while doing so, right? So it was tough with the pandemic, but allowed us to, build a stronger foundation for our program. Or at least the school noticed how important something like this was to address the social and emotional needs of each student. We do multi visits a week with each student, just checking in. And then we have a day where we run after school sessions, which is for group counseling. We run groups with the kids and we do recreational activities. We have monthly field trips and, a lot of great things just around the program. It's always been a need. There's nothing like it in the area. I haven't found anything like it really in the nation.
Once the students are identified, they work with them one-on-one, they work with them collectively as a group. And, it's about the relationship building with the students.
And I was going to say, although the business is called the Academic Leadership Association, you focus more than just on academics. And I know social emotional learning, self-advocacy is really big in your business. Why is it important to foster these types of skill sets as well beyond academics?
Our kids come to school every day and they deal with a lot like outside of school. They carry a lot of like things in school with them where it's the resiliency of our kids, the perseverance that they just show is incredible. They, a lot of them don't get enough credit, but they need that support, right? We can't just expect kids to, you know, navigate through all these hardships, or navigate through like not even just hardships, but like just peer relationships, right? That they struggle with, just knowing who they are. And on top of that, you have to do school, right? So you got the social component, but then you have to sit in the classroom and listen to this teacher. And if you guys, they identify these students, that are considered at risk, right? But if they're already struggling and they don't have that relationship with their teacher, our job is to come in and not only let the student know that they're being supported, but also we're advocating for them, helping them build capacity so they can advocate for themselves. But also we're working with teachers to figure out like, all right, where's the gaps here? Like why are we struggling to build this relationship?
And you both know firsthand the impact that a community school and a community organization can have on your education and your future. Vilenti, you have even said that if it wasn't for a community college, you might have not even gone to college at all. So talk to me about this educational pathway that you both have gone on, and what made it successful for you, and how can you duplicate that success for other students in the community?
For me, education was always something that was important. And, not a lot of family members in my family, have degrees or went to college. So, STCC, like going there, it gave me an opportunity to figure out, okay, what do I want to do? What path do I want to take? So from there, I transferred, got my bachelor's at Westfield State. And then eventually I transferred to Bay Path and was able to obtain my MBA. So just that, coming from a, Latino family and, born and raised in Springfield, I, went to school from kindergarten all the way to 12th grade in the Springfield public schools. So I know how important it is to be able to, model the same thing for other kids who maybe don't have the opportunity or the money to go to school.
Did you both imagine that this is the type of work that you would be doing when you started your educational careers?
I did. I started working in a school in Southbridge. And probably 2 weeks into the school year, one of the administrators came to me and was like, you should start a mentoring um, program our kids needed. There was a lot of time spent in the hallways, just a lot of behaviors, a lot of fights and this is elementary school, a lot of fights at recess and and it was a group of boys that were, like they were just they were high flyers, right? So I started mentoring there with a fellow teacher and we really started to see growth in not only these students, but as a school, like the school culture improved, right? So I worked with Yeselie. Yeselie's an MBA. She helped me with like the basically like the structure of the program, like how to, create a business plan, how to basically formulate this program that will allow us to contract with schools, right? So while I worked on like the program and like its curriculum and all these things, Sully was like the mastermind behind the scenes, putting together like the business operations.
And so, being that you both were raised and from this community and understand the struggles and the things that these students really need, what message would you like to share with other students and people that may be watching?
My parents were teen parents. So, I didn't really have like anyone to model how important, you know, education is or someone to basically pave the way for me. So, there are people out there that, are willing to help. There are, we offer mentoring services to children, building their relationships. And like you said, if doing this work, when did I, realize this was something that I wanted to do? Because when I went to school, I didn't know that I'd be doing what I do now. And for me, I would say it goes back to, when I started working with children back in for the Key program. That's probably when, I started to understand like, the relationships with the children, having relationships with children and, just being present and being there for these, you know, kids. It's important. There's not everyone has someone that they can look up to.
We believe that every kid deserves a voice in their education, right? And they deserve some level of autonomy when it comes to how they learn, right? And I think that we have to do a better job not only modeling the expectations that we have for our students, but also should not lower our expectations, but continue to raise them academically. So how do we provide our kids with a safe space to, to self-advocate, right? But also persevere without giving up on them, right? So again, our job is to ensure that they have that voice, ensure that the families have a voice, but also the teachers, right? Like how can we bridge that gap in the learning for our kids?